Thank you. You're far too kind for tuning in once again to a little thing we like to call the Ball on Blast podcast. As always, my name is Sean Alexander. I'm joined by my guy, Mr. Andrew Webster Webby. What is good?
We're at that time of year. We're right here in front of me. I'm looking at my NCAA tournament bracket.
Woo!
And unlike years in past, so you have to understand that I have a 2.5-year-old daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And some things, when you become a dad, there's something called sacrifice that you have to make. Okay. Mm-hmm. So there's some things that start to slip away. I used to watch, and Shelly knows this, pretty much every and any live sporting event when it came, got paid to do it. Mm-hmm. Didn't matter if it was NASCAR, didn't matter if it was the Calgary Stampede, curling, or college football and college basketball. I used to watch dozens of college basketball games every year. I would know these teams pretty much inside and out, apart from some of the mid-majors that we don't necessarily get. But if you're talking top 25 teams, I was watching 4 or 5 games every year, making sure that I knew who was winning each conference. Mm-hmm. I looked at the bracket today and I was like, is Duke still good?
Well, you should have been asking, Coach is North Carolina still good?
Coach K, I'm looking for some teams. Where's Villanova? I'm going to take them to the Final Four. Nope, not in the tournament. Where's North Carolina? Nope, not in the tournament. So, you know what? I'm doing some reading. I did watch some of the action this past the conference tournaments because it's always good to put those on during nap time so daddy can lie on the couch and get a little college ball in. But right now, boys, but I think that this is my best chance to win one of these tournaments is because I'm not overthinking it. I'm not overthinking it. I know that Purdue has the big Canadian guy. I've never been more sure of a first round or a number 1 seed getting upset in the second.
We'll
round.
get there. Hold on. We'll get there. Something tells me March Madness will be the Ask on Blast segment at the very end of the show. We will.
You don't want to talk about the Oscars and everything everywhere all at once?
No.
Yeah.
Although I will say shouts to Jimmy Kimmel. Right. Hey. Kimmel is just solid. I've always been in the battle of the Jimmies, which is something we've been talking about forever.
Yeah.
Always been a Kimmel guy. And yeah. Overall, though, the Oscars, not really my jam. We'll just say that.
Come to me. Ask me what my favorite movies were the past year. Did you see Barbarian?
No, I did not.
Okay. Check out Barbarian. No, seriously. And don't read it. Don't read anything about it and just start watching it.
Can I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
Were you under the influence of anything while you were taking in?
It's a movie. It's a movie, of course.
Just checking. If
you're not putting no.
Hold on. Don't get fined. Don't get fined. Don't get fined.
Don't
get fined.
Yes, of course.
Just asking the question. That's all.
Just watch Barbarian, man. Okay. It's the craziest. It's crazy.
Speaking of don't get fined, I think that's a pretty good segue. Pretty good segue into someone getting fined, but also it was part of a Raptors 1-4 road trip, which we will get to as part of this, the Ball on Blast podcast. As always, so much going on in and around the NBA. We'll talk a little Raps, of course. We're going to talk about the play-in as things continue to heat up towards the end of the regular season in both the Eastern and Western Conference, which got to ask, like, the people who are against the play-in, I still don't get it.
You're crazy.
Like, this matters now. Like, there's so many teams in the mix in both conferences, but we'll talk about the play-in. We'll talk about lighting the beam in Sacramento. We'll talk about your man's Embiid and the Sixers, Morant pictures leaking. There's a lot of stuff, as always, going on in the NBA because it's just how the NBA rolls. We start, as always, though, with your Toronto Raptors. And as mentioned, a 1-4 road trip for the Toronto Raptors. And, really, I'll say this much, okay? 1-4 road trip, split in Washington, a loss in Denver, then back-to-back losses against the Lakers and the Clippers. And at the time of this recording, the Raptors sit in 9th place, a half game up on 10th place Chicago, a game up on Washington for 11th, and a game and a half up on Indiana for 12th. I'm going to start here and just simply ask you 1-4 road trip. We know about those games. We know about the Scotty Barnes ejection. There's Fred VanVleet. There's losing in both LA teams. But I'm going to start here asking you, what was your biggest takeaway from this 1-4 road trip from the Toronto Raptors?
Did they make the right call at the trade deadline in not getting in staying the course, in not getting rid of guys like Fred and OG and maybe Pascal if you wanted to? But it seemed like they tried to bring all those guys together and say, let's make a run at this. We're going to keep you guys here, come what may in the offseason. I really think that maybe Masai and Bobby Webster should have pulled the trigger on some of these deals.
Yeah.
Because that was pretty much I don't want to say a must-win like road, but you needed to come back with more than just one win from those 5 games because, like, even though they're off of this road trip, this stretch is going to be tough for them. And as we're going to talk about, the spots, like the musical chairs game for these play-in games, it's getting really, really tight. And the teams that they're dealing with that are hovering around them, even below them in the standings, are not necessarily slouches. Like in today's NBA, all of these teams that we're going to talk about are really, really talented, have awesome players, coaching, whatever. And then there's all these X factors, in what the referees are going to be like, as we've seen already. And it's like, in that case, have the Raptors dug a little deeper the hole that they might find themselves in by the way that they've treated these referees? Ooh. Because again, we don't live in a vacuum here. The referees see what's been happening with the Raptors. They see the fine that Fred VanVleet got, and I'm sure any kind of slack that they may have had is starting to shorten. And when you're in a tight race like this, you need every variable on your side. You need to have a good locker room. You need to be executing. You need to be making adjustments in game, but you also need to be working the referees. That's part of success in the NBA. And if you've lost some of the ability to do that, that's, like I say, digging your hole even deeper.
Yeah. And I mean, you touched on it there. It was a tough road trip. And last time we spoke, we were talking about Scotty Barnes getting thrown out of that game. And again, Scott Foster and that whole debacle that was going on with Scotty Barnes, accusing Scott Foster, we won't even get into all that. I'll just say, quote, Scotty Barnes saying, quote, y'all cheating, bro, to Scott Foster, getting thrown out of the game in Denver. Then he had the follow-up the next game against the Clippers, in which Fred VanVleet, the Raptors lose that game, and Fred VanVleet, I'm going to read the quotes just because it was an epic fine by Fred VanVleet.
Came hard.
And I know this is a week old or whatever, but if you get the chance to watch him, because you can see him think about is he about to go in? And then you see the moment where he's like,
fuck it,
I'm going in. And he said, quote, I don't mind. I'll take the fine. I really don't care. I thought Ben Taylor was fucking terrible tonight. I thought that on most nights, a couple out of the 3 officials, there's 1 or 2 that just fuck up the game. You come out tonight competing pretty hard. Third quarter, I get a bullshit tech, changes the whole dynamic of the game, changes the flow of the game. Most refs are trying hard. I like a lot of the refs. They're trying hard. They're pretty fair. They communicate well. And then you have the ones who just want to be, I guess I'll say dicks. Can I say dicks on this pod? I guess so. I make the rules.
Whatever.
And
we said fucking terrible. I figure we could say dicks.
Just kinds of fucks up the game. Nobody coming to see that shit. They want to see the players. Now, I'll say this much. One, the audacity to just come out and just say all that, my guy is cheesed. I don't know if I've ever seen a guy come out and just diss refs that politely, by name, calling them dicks, saying they fucked up the game. But the way that he said it was so smooth at the same time, shouts to Freddie for that and just taking the fine. He ends up getting fined $30,000. And the first thing that came to mind to me was, what's 30 grand to a motherfucker like me? Can you please remind me? But with that said, you do bring up an interesting point, right? Like, what is the reaction going to be from the other refs once that happens? And, there's some questionable calls in the following game against the Lakers as well. And I'm going to assume that whether it's Scott Foster or Ben Taylor are going to end up reffing more Raptors games before the end of this season. And so to me, it ends up being such an interesting choice there. But in terms of where the Raptors sit this season, none of this really helps the situation that this team currently finds themselves in,
This
right?
was my question is, and I understand being emotional after a game like that and knowing the stakes of it and having, in your eyes, the chance to win that game taken away from you. Who benefits by Fred VanVleet going up there, taking that fine and saying, fuck Ben Taylor?
Yeah.
Who benefits? Because I don't think it's Fred and I don't think it's the Raptors, man. Like, are you trying to make a case to the fans, to the people watching the games, that this is one of the reasons why we lost? Like, I just don't understand it in a sport that we have talked about for the last couple of weeks that is so ingrained with your relationship with referees and officials. So you got to know and just say, hey, you may be feeling that you got cheated or this is unfair, but man, to go out there and use that kind of language, even though, like you say, it wasn't like he was fired up about it. Mm-hmm. He was just like almost stating him like a fact. But still, man, you got to like understand the circumstances of where you are, the sport you're playing, and how others are going to see you calling people out like that. Like, that's a fraternity of NBA officials, and you mess with one, I'm sure Ben Taylor, was like, yo, fuck this guy for him showing up my brother Scott Foster the other day.
Yeah, and there's got to be some. I mean, who knows? There's tons of things that could have happened that might be behind the scenes that we have no idea about. But it is weird because Freddie has 8 techs this season, and the third he's earned in games that Ben Taylor, has officiated. So, I mean, that is a weird number for sure. But also just the fact that where the Raptors are at this point of the season, Fred is taking on a leadership role and kind of you could tell he just had enough, right? And it's something that's
for
been
his
brewing
teammates,
for a while.
Maybe. So yeah, maybe that's what I didn't bring up, is that maybe he did it for his teammates, right?
Maybe, just a tipping point. Like, he reached his barrier and this is just enough. And I'm going to get this off my chest because it's just going to be there lingering. And who knows, maybe it manifests in a different way or in a worse way. I'm just going to take the fine, get my money's worth out in one game, in one post-game presser, and hopefully move on and try to get some dubs. Because the other part of all this is the Raptors' remaining or upcoming schedule, right? You got a pretty tough road ahead. We're recording this before they play Denver at home. And then following that game, they play OKC, they host Minnesota, then they're at Milwaukee, and then home to Indiana, which is going to be a huge, huge game.
All teams that are, either in the playoffs already or fighting for one of those spots. So these are going to be tooth and nail games,
And it's tough because, as you mentioned, teams that you got to beat, but also teams that you're going to be at home, except for the Milwaukee game. And it's like, you got to be able to rep your home court, especially because right now, sitting in 9th, that means, 9th, hovering around 10th. You might not have the benefit of a home game to get into the playoffs, right? So that also makes it a little tough if you're the Raptors as well. Well, actually, if you're in 9th, you're going to have to win 2 road games to get into the playoffs. So, you'd get 1 home game. The first game would be a home game. The second game would be a road game. Point being, you got to take care of your home court if you're the Toronto Raptors. And they've done that so far this season, 20-13 at home. That's cool. But my biggest takeaway from watching this Raptors team on the road, and of course it's Fred VanVleet as well. But my other biggest takeaway is, at this point of the season, they doubled down. They brought in Pirtle. They added in Will Barton, right, for some added depth. He's got to play the backup point guard role. But the Raptors still haven't figured out their rotation. And I think that is a major, major problem. You are well past that. You're down the final stretch of the regular season, and you still haven't been able, for whatever reason, whether it's injuries, whether it's a lack of depth, all these different things, but you still haven't been able to figure out your bench unit, and your bench unit that should be okay on paper in terms of Gary Trent, Precious Achua, Chris Boucher, and Will Barton now, and a starter, has been horrible. And you can't have that if you are trying to win games down the stretch against other teams that are also trying to win games. And since Jakob Poeltl has come back, Pascal Siakam's numbers are down as well. Now, there's a lot of different reasons for that to happen, but with Pirtle coming into the lineup and starting, and then everyone else becoming healthy at the same time, meaning your regulars, Fred, Pascal, OG, Scotty Barnes, the pieces just don't fit. And it's something we've been talking about from the start of the season. And if you can't figure this part out, that Lakers game was frustrating, a frustrating L, because the starters did their part.
Yeah.
And the bench got outscored. What was it, like 60-12 or something crazy like that?
Something awful. Yeah.
You can't have those numbers popping up if you're the Toronto Raptors and you're trying to win games against a Lakers team that is without LeBron James, and Anthony Davis didn't even do that much.
Yeah. But definitely have the walls to the back or back to the wall mentality right now. They're clawing for every win. They know they don't have LeBron. They know that to get into that play-in tournament, they need everybody on the same page. They need from 1 to 10 now performing at a high level and executing. And it seems like the Raptors don't have that.
Yeah.
You know, that they have the guys in the starting lineup that are bought in, but when it comes to that, I don't know whether it comes to that second unit that those guys, are they disappearing in the big moments, or is it just not them being able to, operate the way they want to?
So, I've been pretty plugged into these games, especially down the stretch. And, like if you've been familiar with our work, you know what the day job is and all that. I don't really get into that on this platform. But the point I'm trying to make here is, taking in that game in depth, right? Shouts to Josh Lewenberg here with some stats from that Lakers game. Raptors outscored the Lakers 72-55 with their starters on the floor. They were outscored 67-40 with any other lineup on the floor. Lakers had a 61-12 advantage in bench points. That is pathetic. And I tweeted out during the game, right? You're in that moment where every basketball game occurs. It's a close game. You're finishing the third quarter. And as a coach, you have a decision to make. Do you go to your full bench? How many of your starters do you leave in? Do you leave in most of your starters to finish out the third quarter, knowing that you're going to have to sit them to start the fourth? And that's going to be a very important part. And Nick Nurse, he tried to ride out his starters to the end of the third quarter, sat Fred, sat OG, sat Pascal to start the fourth, had a Scotty Barnes-led unit to start the fourth quarter, and they gave up the lead. And to me, that's a turning point in the game, right? Because he can't figure out your bench unit, but it's who are you playing with the bench? And if you're Scotty Barnes, we know the numbers look good, and it says, oh, he finished with 30-plus points and all that. But there's a difference between stats and how impactful your points are. And if you watch how that game went, the Raptors were losing control when Scotty and the bench were on. And then all of a sudden, when Fred and OG and Pascal came back, Scotty Barnes is driving to the basket, getting buckets, knocking down shots. And it's like, bro, we needed that when you were on with the bench unit, right? Like, that's when we need you to do that stuff, not when Fred and Pascal and OG come back in the game. Like, we need that too, but we really needed it when you were on leading the bench unit. And I think like that's such a big part of watching the development and understanding that it's going to take some time for a young kid to figure out just how you pace yourself within the NBA, right? When to go, when to get your buckets, when to, use your
knowing
energy
that you
boost.
can do that leading a bench unit, like almost teaching him to be selfish in some instances. It's okay to go out there and take charge. Like, but again, he is such a young guy, and that'll be learned as his career goes on.
It's just also role definition too, right? Like the way that the Raptors are currently put together, when he's on with Fred and Pascal and those guys, the role is more to play defense, get on the glass, energy guy, be that guy. When you're on with the bench, that's when you cook. That's when you go. And then it comes down to, role definition and accepting that role. I don't know if the move is to still play Scotty with the starter or with the bench unit. I don't know if that's a move. Do you play Fred with the bench unit? Kind of like how you used to have Kyle with the bench. That used to be a thing where it's like, he's cooking, but he's also just setting up everything. I don't know. But bottom line, the Raptors look better with the legitimate center in terms of Jakob Poeltl. So the other pieces have to kind of figure out how to make that work. Like that pick and roll game with Poeltl and Van Fleet has looked great. since that has
he's
been
been
put together.
an amazing addition, like just what the Raptors needed, right?
Mm-hmm. And Pascal as the star, I think that it's on him to kind of figure out, how do I still get my buckets? Like, the difference between, starter, all-star, superstar, and as you go up the levels is that when you're the top tier guys, you figure out how to get yours regardless of the situation, no matter
Right.
what's going on.
And
And I
the
think that's
team
where
needs you
Pascal
to
is
get
struggling.
yours. Like,
Exactly.
and the thing is, it's like the team needs you to get yours. So you're
Totally agree.
not, by getting yours, you're not being a non-team player. That's the success that we need to win this game. So that's what you got to kind of get your mind around, right? And I think that I love that example of Lowry with the bench, because that's exactly the kind of mindset that he had. But
Mhm.
again, by the time he was doing that, he was a vet, right?
For sure. Exactly. And like the pinnacle of that, if you're a Raptors fan, that I always talked about back in our Wrap It Up days, was watching Kawhi and just how he'd put up the same 30 points.
Didn't
No, no,
matter who was playing with him.
but I'm saying the same 30 points, but it was, when was he getting those points? And it
Right.
was, keep the game close, keep the game close. Okay, to end a quarter, to cut a lead from 10 to 5, he's
Yep.
going to go on a run. To cut a lead from 15 to 10 before the end of a quarter, he's going to go on a run. To extend a lead from 5 to 10, like, those are the moments where, as a star player or as a guy who is in charge of the unit that's currently on the floor, that's where you got to pick your spots.
Yeah.
And, Scotty
Knowing the
Barnes, second year
situation
guy.
too. Like you
Yeah.
say, knowing the situation, right?
Second year guy. It's a learning curve. He's developing, he's growing while also trying to figure out the role within this team. There's just a lot going on with the Raps right now, and they're in tough, but they got time
It's
to
going to be
figure it out.
it's going to be like, both conferences right now are separated by a handful of games. It is not easy, and these games down this stretch are going to be awesome.
So we'll start in the East. You mentioned the play-in, right? And how crazy that is. We mentioned just what's going on in the East here. You got the Raptors they are
It looks
in
like your
ninth
top
place.
7. It looks like your top 7 down to the Heat are pretty much in there.
Yeah, the Raptors a game and a half out of 8, which would be the Atlanta Hawks. And
Yeah.
then you're going all the way down to 12th, where you have the Indiana Pacers. I feel like Indiana, so right now, Washington is a half game back of 10th, and
Yep.
Indiana is a game back of 10th. So if we look at this, Washington, Indiana, Chicago, the Bulls, and Atlanta, who's in, who's out? If I'm asking you this, and we're going to be checking in. We're going to be checking in week out, but right now, who you got?
I watched a little bit of the Sixers Wizards game as much as I could. Love the Wizards pink jerseys. I think they're fucking sick.
Yep.
But that team is not good. They are not good.
Yeah.
I think they slip out.
Okay.
I think it probably, right now, the teams that are in, I think, are into the play-in. I think it's just a matter of where they finish in relation to the one team that none of the other 3 teams want to see, which is Miami. And I know Miami's dealing with a lot of stuff right now. Jimmy Butler walked off the court the other day, just insane. But that team's got so much talent, and they're the Heat, that I think that none of the other 3 teams that you see there want to see the Heat. I don't know if the Rabs can catch the Hawks. I don't know if the Bulls go on a little bit of a run here. They certainly have talent to do so. Rough news about Lonzo Ball. You hate to see that. But I think that it kind of ends the way we're seeing it here. Like I say, if you're the Raps, you definitely want the Hawks in that first game rather than the Heat, I think.
Oh, definitely. I mean, if you're the Raps, the hope is that you can, get up to the 8th seed, and then that way you just win one game and you're in.
Yeah.
Obviously that's the hope, and it's kind of tight right now at that spot. My thing is watching those bottom, you look at 10, 11, 12. I look at Washington and Indiana and think those 2 teams are probably the most talented or better teams, even though the
Wizards have some great players, but they're just not inconsistent.
Good. Yeah, it's true. And it's just a bunch of mediocre teams that have really, really good wins and then really, really bad wins. And I think that's the part that makes it really tough, right? Like, I've been scoreboard watching, which is so funny because again, the play-in has made it so that you're scoreboard watching the bottom, like you're scoreboard watching
what
for
did the
11.
Hawks do tonight?
Yeah, and you have a run where it's like the Bulls and Pacers are both 3-3 in their last 6. The Wiz are just 1-5 in their last 6, but you have these teams that they'll win big games against like the Bucks or something, but then lose to the Pistons. And it's just so funny because it's just a sign of a mediocre team, right? But here we are.
Inconsistency, right?
Exactly. So you talked about, I mean, you look at those teams. I'm saying I think that Indiana and Washington will both find a way to make it in.
Really?
So, yeah, I think those two teams will find a way to make it in. I'd like to
see Indiana get in. I like their team. I mean, Halliburton is sick. The Canadian kid is awesome.
Yeah.
And they have one of my favorite non-Sixers, TJ McConnell, right?
Yes. Fair enough. And Indiana's season kind of got derailed by the Halliburton injury. So you could see them finally getting him back and healthy and see how that will go. But it'll come down to just wins. And we know we went through the Raptors schedule, huge game against Indiana coming up. So at the end of the Raps' next 5 games, that'll be very huge to see for sure where that ends up. And I asked you this question about the East. So, of course, I'm going to ask you that question.
Hold on. One question. So you say that Washington and Indiana get in.
Oh, I'm going back down. I'm scrolling back up. Yep.
Washington and Indiana are in. Who are the 2 teams right now that are out?
So here's what I think. I think that the Raptors are in some trouble here. I just think the Raptors have a really, really difficult schedule. If you look at how things are playing out and the way that the Raptors season schedule ends, like if you go to the very, very end of the Raptors schedule, they play. So you have 2 games against Charlotte, which you should, I'll go back a bit. The Raptors end the season with a game again. They go Washington, Miami, Philadelphia, right? All of those teams need wins. So you have to win the Washington game. Then you get 2 games against Charlotte, which you better win both of them in Charlotte. Cool, right? But then you end the season with Boston, Milwaukee.
Could be resting players at that point.
But when you look at the top of the standings, though,
they may not have a ton to play for.
But you want to hold on. I completely disagree. Boston and Milwaukee will be battling for first overall.
But they'd be locked into either one of the play-in games. I don't think. Do you think that they,
I'm saying Boston and Milwaukee.
That's good for me. That means they're shook of the Sixers.
Well,
that means that person in second doesn't want to see Embiid in the playoffs.
I just think Boston learned last year, Boston and Milwaukee, because they played each other in the playoffs, learned how important having game 7 at home would be, right? And I think that when you look at it from that perspective, as you know, if we know Middleton was out, Giannis almost dragged Milwaukee past Boston, but Boston having home court mattered, right? And I think like that, when you look at those 2 teams,
series, you're right.
It's going to be tough. And if you're the Raptors and that's how you're ending that season, also, if I'm Milwaukee and Boston and I look at the bottom of the play-in and you're looking at teams like the Hawks, the Bulls, and Washington, I don't really think you want to play the Raptors in a playoff series. Right. Like, and I'm not saying because I think the Raptors are like way better than those teams. I just think it's a harder game against the Raptors. You know what I mean? Yeah. So if you can take care of business and eliminate them there, you might want to do that and be like, all right, we can lock down Trae Young for a couple games here. That is no defense self. Whereas the Raptors, you're clutching and grabbing and you got to go play in Toronto.
And it's like, it's that kind of play that that physical lineup that Toronto has loves to play, right? And so like again, Miami, right?
Yeah. Like, again, I'm not saying the Raptors are better than those teams. I'm just saying, who do you want to play against, right? Because you're going to win, but it'll take a lot out of you.
You have the Raptors out. So
I think they're in tough, man. I think they're in super tough, man.
And so you have the Raptors and Chicago out and Indiana and Washington in.
Yeah. And I'm saying that without looking at Washington and Indiana's like run here, but I just think the Raptors schedule is one of the hardest schedules down the stretch. Right. Yeah. And I just think that Boston, Milwaukee on the last game of the season, I could see them sitting because we've seen them do that before because that's what Bud, doesn't care. He'll sit Giannis because that's the most important thing, making sure Giannis is whole. So you better take care of business those 2 games against Boston. But the Raptors have struggled against Boston this season, regardless of who's in the lineup. I mean, they lost big in a game that Brown didn't even play. But let's go on to the West, because I know we spent a lot of time there talking about the Rappies, but we'll go to the West because that story is just as crazy as you look at, just what's going on there. As you look at the standings,
it goes like, it's not just the play-in, it's the 2 teams that are above the play-in that have that, like, all of this in a week. We could see the Clippers or the Warriors be down in 9th or 10th. It could be even worse.
It's really insane when you look at how crazy this is. And you have teams 5 through 12. Yes, 5 through 12 separated by 3 games. That is crazy, folks. And, there's a couple of things that I find really strange here. I feel like Portland, who's currently in 11th, I feel like every other game I see Dame Lillard sitting out.
Yeah. Or sitting out, that or he has like 35 in the third quarter.
Yeah, I find that very strange. We know the update with Zion is he's still out a couple more weeks, which is,
I don't think we see him.
I agree with you there for sure.
Do we have a LeBron James? Do we have a LeBron James update?
Well, LeBron's going to be back. LeBron's going to be reevaluated, but I still think the way that the Lakers are playing as of late, it kind of boasts well to not rush LeBron back. And I think they'll be much less likely to rush him back if they are just still hovering in that, they're in 12th right now, but as you mentioned, a good week could see them in 6th, right? So it's a tough thing. And Anthony Davis, we mentioned the Raptors game, and Anthony Davis didn't really play well, and they still found a way to win. So I don't even know what to fully make of this Lakers team, but they appear to be doing it right now.
Why are my standings different than yours?
Hold on. Let's see here. I don't know. Is something.
Yeah, those are the ones that I have with the Lakers.
Oh, look at this. Boom. That was a refresh. Did you see that refresh?
Yeah. I was going to say, I was like, why do you have the Lakers at 13.5 games back? I have them at 13 games back.
Yo, do you know what's so crazy? Do you know what messed up? Do you know what actually happened there as you're looking at the standings? That's just not a refresh. That was up from last night, but I guess before the games from last night actually changed on ESPN.com. That is amazing. But the funny thing is,
no auto refresh.
No, but do you know what the funny thing is about that? You look at the standings and it's still from 5 to 12 separated by 3 games. That is insane. And it makes me actually want to go up. Did we mess up something up here?
No, they were
the East is still the same.
Well, it's the Bulls and the Raptors are in.
No, yeah, the Bulls and Raptors are in. It was Washington and the Bulls that are swapped here.
Yeah, that were swapped.
Yeah, that is so crazy. Like the numbers are the same. The teams are like,
like you say, it doesn't really matter where they are. I was just tripping out, but because
that is hilarious.
After tonight, it'll all be all the little pieces will rearrange again.
And that is what is hilarious. And again, one good night changes so many different things. And the Lakers are in 9th place, as you mentioned. And you look at it from that viewpoint. The Clippers.
My question is, if, in the last 4 games of the season, the Lakers find themselves in 11 or 12, but still a game and a half back, does LeBron James play?
Yeah, I think so. I think if they're in striking distance and he's looking at all those teams and he thinks he can beat all those play-in teams, right? Like if you're LeBron, you're looking at that and you're saying, I can take them.
Licking your chops at the prospect of playing the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Exactly. Or the Pelicans playing the Zion.
Even the Lakers against the Clippers, you're going to be kind of licking your chops.
I don't know if I want that smoke if I'm the Lakers, but at the end of the day, they're doing the job right there. They're doing the job. And to be doing it without LeBron, I think that part is huge. I think that part is so massive. And you can't really, especially for a team where so much of the talk has been centered around just what the Lakers.
Oh, it's 3D chess. It's 3D chess from LeBron.
And Pelinka.
not
I
only
think
does he
Pelinka's
get
done a
to,
great job.
well, I mean, it's kind of LeBron checking Pelinka, you know?
Fair.
It's, I'm going to rest. If we're good enough to make this play in tournament, I'll be back. But you know what? If this team without me craters, if Davis can't stay on the court, if you guys can't rally around this amazing, talented, one of the best center, power forward in the game right now, if you guys can't get into this play-in tournament with just him and the rest of the team around you, why would I come back to the Lakers next year?
No, I hear you. I hear you. I look at the standings, right?
Or
And
why
from
would
the
I keep
East,
Davis around?
well, we talked about the East standings, and I think the Raptors and Bulls drop out. The Wizards and Pacers move into the play-in the East. I look at the West, and I think the teams that are in right now will remain in terms of
No,
Minnesota, Dallas, Lakers, and the Pelicans. The Thunder, I
no,
think, want.
it
I
ain't
don't know if
happening.
do
It
the
ain't
Thunder
happening
want to
for
make the playoffs?
the Thunder are, of these teams that are in the bottom four there. I think the Thunder have the best team.
But do the Thunder want to make it is what I'm saying, because there were
Why
random
wouldn't they?
games where they were sitting Shea. Which I didn't really get.
Well, that, or he is dealing with something. But listen, right now they're in 11th in the West. They have a real legitimate shot to make a play-in game. They've got one of the top 5 player in the NBA right now, even though he's been sitting here or there.
Shouts to
They've
Shea.
got a really legitimate team. And this is not just, and we'll get into this with the Sacramento Kings as well. This is not just one guy carrying a bunch of scrubs. Like, this team, and then is set up for the next couple of years. So even if they finish not in the lottery, it's not a big deal because of the amount of picks that they have. Packaging them together and moving up, or using them in a way that you can make a trade for another star is, I mean, talk about 3D chess. I love Presti and what he's been doing. Not only that, but you're going to get and I know you're not a huge fan of him, but you're still getting the number 2 pick of the NBA draft fresh for next year.
Chetana. Yes. I forgot about
Shout
Chetana.
to Chet, man.
I forgot.
Get him in
I
there.
forgot about Chet.
So,
It's true.
but it's like getting a lottery pick, a top 2 pick in the draft for yourself next year. So why not make this run? And honestly, compared to what the Pelicans are doing with no Zion, they're in a free fall. This is a team that was a top 1 to 2 seed in the West, a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
I really think that the Thunder can do it, man. And I hope that they do. Like, I know a lot of their fans are tank this, tank that, but listen, you still have this whole treasure chest of picks and draft asset. You don't necessarily need to get Scoot or Wembanyama this year, because I don't think it's going to happen. There are other teams that have been tanking way better than you have. So why not try and make this play-in game and build the culture of your team? Because, God, where I stand on Giddey. Okay.
Are you a fan, Webby?
I'm a big fan of Giddey. And when he was drafted, I was like, why is this guy going 6? I would have drafted this guy in the top 3. He's incredible. And listen, kid's looking like a movie star out here. That's what you need on your team.
Yeah. No,
And
I got you.
Everybody was talking about Shea. Should they trade Shea? Should the Raptors get Shea? I'll tell you one thing that the Thunder aren't doing is letting go of one of the biggest trade steals of all time. Like, not only did they get all those picks from the Clippers, but the Clippers gave up on Shea. Wouldn't you much rather have, and Paul George is having a great year and he's a great player, but wouldn't you much rather have Shea at this point?
For sure. Totally agree with that. Time for a couple of just random check-ins that we're going to do from now to the end of the regular season, which are just going to be MVP check-in and a simple question of, do you believe in blank? Okay.
MVP check-in.
Well, we'll start with this here because we were talking about the Western Conference. And I'm going to ask you, do you believe in the Sacramento Kings, who continue to make the run in the Western Conference, currently still in second place they're in?
Yeah. Second or third. They're up
second
there.
Or third. They're up there. They're in third place. They're a game out of second place. Pardon me. My bad. As clearly I'm having a lot of trouble with the standings today. But the point remains, Sacramento Kings are balling. They remain having the best offense in the NBA. They are, as the Ja Morant saga continues to, mount in just more
Play out.
drama and
Yeah.
play out. Yeah. Sacramento continues to rise, and they could be looking at the second seed in the Western Conference. And my question to you, Mr. Andrew Webster, is do you believe the Kings can win the West?
I really do. I
Oh,
really believe
okay.
that the Kings can win the West, because when you look at the other teams that are around them, the other teams are in that Western Conference around them. You have the Denver Nuggets,
Mhm,
who are having an amazing regular season, but have been known to choke in the playoffs. We've
mhm,
got the Memphis Grizzlies, who are dealing with, as I'm sure we'll get to, a huge, I don't want to say crisis, but a situation that involves their best player. So they're kind of up in the air. You look behind the Kings, and you've got the Suns, who just had Kevin Durant go down.
yeah,
We don't know. They say he might be ready in time for the start of the playoffs, but he might not.
yeah. And then you
That
have the Clippers, who knows
well,
what's
the
going on there.
Clippers
The
and the
Warriors
Warriors, who
can't
are
win on the road.
they're basically in a playing battle right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the Kings not only have a fortuitous path in front of them
Mhm.
to a Western Conference run, but even before all this stuff around them started to happen, I love their team.
Yeah.
I love the story. We need more things like this in the NBA. They're fun. They're fun to watch. We love watching De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis do their thing, and they've got a pretty deep team, and they probably have the coach of the year. All those things are coagulating at the right time with a
Ooh.
situation in front of them that they could make a run to the West. Why not? The great home crowd,
Yeah.
light the beam. I'm catching Kings fever, man. And like I say, most importantly, like, they're a fun team to watch. They got a little bit of the dog in them, as we saw last night with,
Mhm.
of course, the Canadian gets into it, right?
I
Trey
love
Lyles, like,
that.
where's Trey Lyles from? Like Saskatchewan, too, right?
Yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah.
good,
I love that. I
couple of
love
pills and he'll get into it, bro.
Well, I love everything about the fact just how Sacramento, you look at that team and you have De'Aaron Fox, his clutch numbers are just through the roof this season, and
Insane.
that's been
Harrison
incredible.
Barnes has been playing out of his mind.
A good vet in Harrison Barnes, right? A great vet in Harrison Barnes. I love the fact that when you look at their lineup as well, the trade for Sabonis, you give up Halliburton, and we talked about this last week. You give up Halliburton, which is tough, but you get Sabonis, who is putting up such crazy numbers that you see
Put
things where it's
Look at
like,
the
oh,
man's
only
name.
Wilt has done that, right? And it's like
Look at the man's name. Know the man's pedigree.
exactly,
Arvidas.
yeah, it's
Not your
crazy.
Vetus or my Vetus, our Vetus. That's his
Hey,
loin. That's where he comes from, man. And not only
yeah,
that, hey, they made another pretty big move in the offseason. Didn't seem like a big move, but can't deny, can't deny the redhead.
yeah, Herder,
Kid
Herder
can
puts in work,
ball. I've known that since he
but
killed the
also
Sixers a
you
couple
know,
of years ago
they
in the
have
Hawk.
depth. They have
Yeah,
depth,
that's what I
right? Like
mean. They
Keegan
go
Murray
real
has been
deep.
really good for them at certain points
Malik
this season
Monk
as
is a
well.
6 man of the year candidate.
Yeah, it's a real team and offense is huge. And the biggest thing will be as this NBA continues to shift into this generation of stats being inflated and numbers, offensive numbers just going up and up in craziness. It's going to be interesting to see as the normal talk of everything changes in the playoffs. Defense matters more in the playoffs. Offense goes down. How much will it go down for a team like this in terms of Sacramento that's been clicking at such a high rate for the whole season? That will be interesting to see, but also clicking at a high level this season. Your man's Joel Embiid. We've been checking in on the Jokic
Come
MVP
on.
talk each and every week. And I've been asking you, really? Like, you're just gonna not acknowledge your man's
No,
Embiid and say that
I
he's the MVP?
listen.
But there's a big time game winner that happened recently.
There's
I mean,
just
the
you
Sixers
want to
are on
talk
a
about
roll.
you were talking about Sabonis, where every time he does something, it's like, oh, he hasn't done it since Wilt. It's the same with Embiid. Anytime Embiid steps on the floor, it's like, oh, no, nobody's done this since Wilt. And it's not just the amazing shot making abilities. His skill set is like, okay, I know that I picked Jokic to win the MVP, and I still think he does. But whose skill set impresses you more in a game,
Mhm.
on both ends of the floor? I'm not talking about,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just talking about their skill set.
What
Whose
Embiid is
impresses you
able
more?
to do is pretty crazy. Would I prefer that my big men just stay in the post and dominate the post? Of course.
Why? When
But
your big man is fucking Michael Jordan. Did you see
this. I'm not
No, did you see the clip? I was gonna, and I should have. I watched it yesterday and I was like, oh, I gotta at Shelly on this. And it's like overlaid clips of
Stop
Jordan
this.
and Embiid.
I'm not
Bro,
gonna
I'm
watch
just saying,
that.
even the comparison being made is unbelievable.
I'm not going to watch that video. I'm telling you right now, I'm not watching that video. Okay. You can send it. You can tweet it. You can put it on Instagram. You can put it on your MySpace. You can put it anywhere you want, Webby. I'm not going to watch that clip comparing Embiid to Michael Jordan. But what I do want to ask you, and it's all seriousness aside, right? Like, I think Embiid, and this is coming from me, I'm a notorious sports hate. I always emphasize sports hate of Joel Embiid, right? And 33 and 10. He's just putting up like big boy numbers. The Sixers are on a roll.
Rolling out of bed and putting up 36 and 10.
I don't think it's that much of a foregone conclusion that we're just handing this to Jokic yet again when Embiid is on the run that he's on, and the Sixers are making strides 3 games out of top spot in the West, a game out of second. So you see the key here. Which is more likely? Sixers to get the top spot in the East or Embiid for MVP?
I don't think either one is very likely. I don't.
Ooh. Well, if you could choose, which one do you want? You want your man's.
If I could add a third one, okay, and it would be make Eastern Conference Finals.
I mean,
I would put that as most likely.
I'm gonna be honest with you, Webby, and this is like actual basketball talk, not my sports hate for Joel Embiid.
You don't see it happening.
No, I will never, ever, okay, believe in Joel Embiid, James Harden, and Doc Rivers to have this great playoff run separately or together until I
certainly
see
not together.
Right?
I don't know why Embiid gets rolled into that. I can understand
he's
Harden
been there
and
for
Doc.
The playoff failures. What do you mean?
Yeah, but he didn't play in the Heat series last year.
We watched Joel Embiid put up single-digit outings against Marc Gasol. We all watched.
Okay, that was 2 years ago. But last year he beat the Sixers in a 7-game playoff series.
No, he beat the Raptors.
Or the Raptors in a 7-game playoff series and put up pretty fucking good numbers against them.
He did.
And I seem to remember a pretty crazy game-winning 3-pointer that he hit.
He did. It's true.
So I can understand putting Harden and Doc in there, but I can't put Embiid in there yet.
I'll believe it.
I think it's more likely than them finishing top of the East or him winning MVP.
Okay.
Now the thing is with the MVP, it's like I pretty much given up because even if he keeps putting up these numbers, they're going to make the statistical case for Jokic and Giannis being better. But I mean, eye test it. It's what he's doing as a guy that size is like he's putting it through his legs. He's hitting turnaround game-winning jumpers. He's hitting threes.
We're talking about winning MVP, not doing this for the gram. Okay, Webby.
He's cooking, man.
So
and not only that, but he's revived James Harden's career. James Harden is having his best year since he won MVP.
And he's going to take the money and run back to Houston after this.
Sure, because listen, Dame Lillard will look sick in a Sixers jersey. Okay, sick. Dame time's going to be Eastern Standard, baby. Let's go.
What I do want to say,
ring the bell on the wrist.
This might sound crazy, but I am not making a final MVP decision until I see on March 27th the Philadelphia 76ers in Denver against Nikola Jokic and the Nuggets. I want to see that head-to-head matchup because that stuff matters to me. I want to see that. You can say, oh, it's just one game. No. This is what sports is. Sports is about competition. And if two dudes know that they are near the top of the MVP debate and they're going head-to-head with like a week and a half to go in the season, I want to see who's built that life. Who wants to see?
In that situation, of those two guys, who do you think gets up for it more?
Oh, Embiid. Embiid is just more likely to. I think Embiid is more likely to try and make more of the moment than Jokic. Because even if Jokic does put up the, his normal, 25 and 10 and 10 and get the triple double. He's going to go about his business and do it in a certain way. But if Embiid touches 30 and the Sixers win in Denver, my guy's going to
be doing the jet. He's going to be doing the Hulk Hogan. Exactly. He's going to be mean mugging. Bro,
he'll be doing it for the gram on top of doing it on the court, right? And like, unfortunately, that matters. The moments matter. The moments matter.
Absolutely. And that's what I really, that's why, I mean, this is probably why you hate Embiid and why I like him so much, is that he really understands that shit.
Yeah.
And he really plays into it, you know? A lot of these other guys, they shy away from it, man. But like, that's why, again, a lot of people, sorry to bring up Kevin Durant, but a lot of people hate on, or not even hate, but criticize his activity online and stuff. But like, that's a guy who gets it, you know? I just think Durant gets it. And you know, there's other guys in the league that do. And I'm not saying that Jokic doesn't get it, but he's like, you could, when he won the MVP last year, he like brought it around in a fucking Borat cart around Serbia or wherever he's from when he won, you know? Like he's not about the gram, you know?
Yeah. No, totally fair. Totally fair. Something that people probably wish wasn't on the gram was there was a photo leak of Ja Morant photo leak. We're hoping that we wish that wasn't on the gram. As this week's update of Ja Morant, first off, like, I mean, we'll get the serious stuff in first and just say he's out.
And then can we analyze the picture? Because I have questions. I've got questions.
We'll just get the news part, the serious part out of the way. He's out indefinitely as he enters a counseling program in Florida. We don't know what that means, but we just hope that
it's
good.
A good thing.
And he's getting whatever help he needs. We all wish that. We all want that. We all want to see those things.
Don't rush back. This is so much more important than fucking
way more
us talking about where you're going to finish in the seeding or whatever, man. Like all we want is for a guy like Ja, who we all like literally as basketball fans have fallen in love with since his Murray State days, and just couldn't wait for this kid to like show his talent on the NBA stage. And he's done that, but I think everybody, I don't think that there's one person out there who doesn't want to see Ja get right and get back to playing and living life, right?
Totally. Right. And on top of that, the other part of that to me is the other story that has come out, which I also think is an important factor in him, going to get the help that he needs, because this adds another level of the social media. You're almost seeing like it in layers where he made this a bigger story by himself going on to social media and flashing a gun and all that stuff. And then now also on social media, thanks to the New York Post, which, I mean, New York Post, TMZ, it's like the Spider-Man meme pointing at each other. But New York Post releases photos of Ja Morant in said club. And I mean, I'll describe the photos because I don't even know if I could actually put them up on the pod if you're watching on YouTube.
Is that cash?
Like and subscribe.
Is that cash? My first question is that cash all over?
I'll describe the picture first, right? You see Ja Morant in the corner. There's no one else in the club. He appears to be in the corner getting a lap dance, and the whole floor is just filled with what appears to be cash. You can't see the floor.
Like cash.
We were having this discussion the other day, and I don't want to implicate people because I don't want people to take this the wrong way. But the discussion, as it was explained to me, was that what happens is you come in with cash, they hand you fake ones, and then that's what you disperse within said strip club.
Okay. Simon Bennett told you that, didn't he?
Wow. How you gonna? Why would you? Jeez. Shots fired for no reason. And my guy chooses like the nicest guy ever. That it's like clearly not
the person who would. Yes, exactly. Shouts to Simon Bennett.
Yeah, huge shouts to Simon Bennett. Clearly a guy that it's not about.
Guy, try the meal.
Jeez, my guy. Shouts to Simon Bennett. But my question to you though, right? Like, is this like, how does this happen? Why do these pictures end up online? Because this is not good publicity for
why do they end up online?
Willies. No, but I'm saying Shotgun Willies in Denver. Like, this isn't good publicity for them. If you're a high profile client, are you going to this establishment?
Shotgun Willies must be getting the bag from TMZ. Now, the other crazy thing about Shotgun Willies is the night that Ja Morant was there was a Dr. Seuss birthday party at Shotgun Willie's. Dr. Seuss from Hop on Pop.
Wait, what?
And the Lorax. Yeah. No, I'm looking at it right now. The night Ja Morant was at Shotgun Willie's with Dr. Seuss's birthday night, the second of 2 Dr. Seuss's birthday nights at the club.
I'm really confused. Why do they have Dr. Seuss nights at the club?
I don't know. Maybe they're fans of the Grinch. Maybe they got a long.
Confused. What is happening right now?
I'm telling you, I'm looking at the Shotgun Willie's. I'm looking at the Shotgun Willie's calendar right now, and it's got the date Ja Morant was there, and it says Dr. Seuss birthday, 11 a.m. to 11:55 p.m. So it's an all-day affair. The Dr. Seuss's birthday event. Shotgun Willie's, 492 South Colorado Boulevard. Celebrate Dr. Seuss's birthday at Shotgun Willie's. That was the night Ja Morant was there.
Dr. Seuss has to be like the name of some like DJ or something, right?
Or
come on, man.
Not the beloved children's author.
Come on, like what are we talking about? Dr. Seuss has to be like, okay, why am I putting like I do see the article here on the big lead, but like what is happening right now, man? What is really
I told you I had questions about this whole night.
I wish I had answers for you, and maybe one of our viewers or listeners will be able to fill us in with who
I think Judy Bloom night at Shotgun Willie's is actually next month.
Jeez. Wow. Absolutely insane. Or some might say,
dear God, it's me, Margaret. Oh God.
Wow. Some might say complete madness, which is a segue into our final segment of this week's pod, which is Ask on Blast.
Oh, which is my terrible bracket. Oh,
our Ask on Blast segment, as mentioned earlier, is March Madness is here. I'm going to be honest. Normally, I put out a bunch of March Madness content. You'll have March Madness pods with picks. I'm going to be honest with you. It's not happening this year.
You and Russell aren't getting together for any.
The schedule is too busy, but I will push everybody to @MRussAuthentic and get everything that my guy's writing over at The Score.
It doesn't matter what pods the guy writes about.
Content. Oh, he's over it.
He's on. If you want a bag, follow Matt Russell.
Yes, I will be following Matt Russell to because I'm sure once Thursday does roll around, I'm going to want to be sprinkling somewhere. But I will say this, I have not watched the reason why I'm not doing any college basketball content is because I've not watched a college basketball game this season yet. And also, like, the schedule is just too hectic with Raptors going on, with pods, with other projects. Just too much going on right now at the moment.
Do you have tips for anybody? Do you have a tip for anybody who is looking at their bracket?
Oh, yeah, without even looking at
to fade or to hop on.
Haven't even looked at a bracket, but I will tell you a few things. Okay. 1, shouts to Zach Edey because putting on for Canada.
No chance that guy's making it to the Elite Eight. No chance. I see a big white guy like that, and I see a whole galaxy.
Did I just call him Zach Purdy?
No, Zach Edey. Right?
No, I'm saying, did I call him Zach Purdy?
No. Were you thinking about the? You're thinking about the elbow.
My Niners guy. Yes, I know.
You're thinking about.
But I'm just saying, shouts to Zach Edey. Sorry.
I see a galaxy of college basketball players who are going to be looking to put it on this kid.
I mean, listen, okay, Zach Edey, I'm going to give him all the props because, want to see Canadian boys do well, but this isn't about Zach Edey. He's going to win Player of the Year. He's had a great season. He's done a really, really good job, but it's a Purdue stench and their crappy conference stench. We all know how this goes come March. Okay. They're going to play some mid-major team with senior guard play that's going to get hot from 3.
Florida Atlantic.
Sure. And it's going to be jam done. I'm saying this without looking at a bracket. The next thing, karma will not allow Alabama to win. Okay. I'm just saying
100% right.
Alabama,
100% right.
Without getting into that story, doing way too much. Karma will not allow Alabama. And what's their coach's name?
I don't know.
I'm drawing a blank, but like my guy's a clown. Yeah. They're done. And as always, my rules for each and every year in March Madness, Bun Duke and Bun Gonzaga. Okay. I don't even have to know what's going on at all. But if you follow those 4 things, friends, I'm just here to help you out. And that is my March Madness analysis.
So don't have Duke and Gonzaga in the Final Four. That's what you're saying.
No, don't do it.
All right.
Don't do it.
Good looking on you, Kansas, and good looking on you, Marquette. All righty. I think I'm set. You know?
But again,
I'm trying to think if there's any other team to check out. I mean, none of my Philly schools are in it, so that's a shame.
Yeah.
But the ones that I'll give you one. I'll give you 2. Okay, I said Marquette. Shaka Smart. We both love Shaka Smart going back to his VCU days as coach. We like Marquette making a big run. The other one that I like, Providence is an 11 seed playing Kentucky. Okay. John Calipari in Kentucky.
Yep.
Last year, when Kentucky was in the tournament, they DNP'd one of their best players. Yeah. And they ended up losing that game. The next day or the next week or whatever, that player who DNP'd transferred to Providence. Ooh. And this year, he has been lighting it up, and Providence plays Kentucky first round. I like Providence to upset Kentucky. That's
okay.
That's what I'm giving you right now. That revenge game, that's what I'm giving you right now.
I like it. And of course, we always try to give you all the information you need on all things basketball, but dead serious. Follow M. Russ Authentic. Read everything my guy's putting out there on the score to get everything that you need between now and all through the March Madness tournament for sure. But if you want the jokes, you want the information in equal doses.
Celebrations of Dr. Seuss's birthday.
Where can the people find you online, my dude?
Instagram and Twitter, man. It's the same. At @awebster84. Hit me up. If you like listening to this. You know, we're always sending each other. Listen, if you want that clip of Michael Jordan highlights superimposed onto Joel Embiid highlights, I'm sending it to Shelly right now. I got to go find it. I'm sending at @awebster84. Hit me up.
I've already told you.
I'm sending it right now. I don't care if you're going to watch it or not.
I will not be watching. I'm telling you right now. I will not be watching.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, there it is. Right there. Okay.
Well, you can find me online. My name is Sheldon Alexander. You can find me online on Twitter at Shell Alexander, on Instagram at Sheldon Alexander. And please like and subscribe to the pod wherever you get your podcast. Bless with the like, bless us with the retweet. That's how you support the movement that is this, the On Blast Podcast Network. And we love you for that. We thank you for that. We appreciate that for sure. And as always, I used to pray for times like this, to rhyme like this. This is the Ball on Blast podcast, part of the On Blast Podcast Network. As always, unpolished and unapologetic. Until next time, see ya.
Peace.